2020 up until March 20. In about a year이니까. I got it. To March 2021. Parisians leave the capital massively in the face of a third lockdown. You know what this means? Third lockdown. I always actually had a suspicion whether you fucking do not actually understand my understanding because of your imbecile fucking brains. In the face of a thorough lockdown phase in a year, that means that this is really a thorough lockdown. Starting from, last March 2020 up until this March 20, I got it immediately. In the face of a third lockdown phase in a year, Parisians leave the capitals massively. That's my first sentence, first impression. But why am I actually being fucking mad? Because I'm afraid of being mistaken by your fucking moronic arguments. I was not confused. In a year means, starting from the last March of 2020 up until 2021's March 21, there exists more than already, two lockdowns that had taken place. Two lockdowns taken place. They have no missing point. Just like yesterday, I have already explained everything, but the thing is, I was afraid of being attacked by those people who are so idiotic they would never understand my signals. You know what? Starting from the March of 2020 and up until this March of 2021, there are already two lockdowns that had taken place. So this is really a third lockdown that affects, the French people this Saturday. Starting from this Saturday, they actually experienced lockdown. This is third one. But before that, first and second one already had taken place. In an year. In an year means, within a 365 days. That was what I wanted to explain. Within the 365 days, starting from approximately last March 2020, the immediate beginning of the pandemic crisis, French society had the first lockdown and the second lockdown in between, and this, the coming one is really a third lockdown. In the face of a third lockdown phase in a year, from, March 22 to March 2021, Parisians leave the capital massively. Most of the trains at the Montparnasse or in a major stations are already booked or occupied with the crowds living for somewhere else because they wanted to go outside of Paris because Paris is under the grip of a lockdown that is to take place starting from this Saturday. Technically in France it's really, right now it's a Saturday. So I said I was, just like yesterday, this is really a sequel to yesterday. I'm afraid of, being mistaken. In a year means, let me actually, fucking get this idea understood because you're fucking morons, so you don't really understand a shit about it. I was afraid. In a year, I had written down the exact same sentence, but the only concern is, what if those morons and imbeciles would never get the message of mine? That's always a critical concern. I said in an year, that means, we actually live 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and until 365 days. Within this time period, French society had already, first lockdown. Let me actually write it down. The first lockdown is already done. The second lockdown, I'm not feeling confused. Already done. But this, coming. This is Saturday. Begins the third one. That's really the reason in about a year, within 360 days. That's what I wanted to say. This is my first version. If you ever watch the video, you'll get to know it. In the face of a third lockdown phase in a year, I don't really need to look into the case again because, my phone was actually face down here. I never actually looked into the case again because I got the message really clearly. I read a French faster than most of the Korean words, it's really face. In the face of a third lockdown phase in a year, March of 2020, from March of 2020, right? So because that's really the reason we have this, timeline about 365 days. In about a year, you fucking understand this in a year. In a year means, in a year period, that's a what? In a year. In a year means within 365 days in a French society already actually had 2 lockdowns that are really finished, done, water under bridge. But right now, they're just about to have another third lockdown. This is to begin on Saturday. So that's really the third lockdown in a year, all right? That's not what I wanted to say. That I was, if this is my first version, I was afraid of being mistaken by stupid assholes who really don't understand the simple message that is really natural to me because of their idiocy or absurdity. That's the real reason I'm fucking mad. I haven't written down everything that has been there. In the face of a third lockdown facing an ear, you know what? The Parisians will leave the capital city massively. I got this message so quickly, I don't really need to think twice about it. It's very fucking obvious.